Greetings everyone and welcome to part 6 of my video titled Proof that Homosexuality is Sin. If you have not seen parts 1 through 5 of my video series, be sure to click on my link on the right hand side of this video, on the upper right hand side of this video, and you can check out parts 1 through 5. Okay, now in the last days, now in our earth, now in the last days, homosexuality is becoming more common, and unfortunately people are becoming more tolerant of it. Decades ago, if you said homosexuality was a sin, people would applaud, people would be happy, people would say amen. Unfortunately, these days, if you say homosexuality is a sin, all of a sudden people look at you as if you want an FBI top 10 list of most wanted terrorists. People are not looking at us as hateful, bigoted, and so-called homophobes. The homosexuality conspiracy is derived from Hitler's big lie technique. But few people realize that people are being deceived by a masterful propaganda. Few people realize that they are being deceived by a masterful propaganda technique that rivals that of Adolf Hitler's. In fact, many other strategies that homosexuals use to bring about cultural change in America are indeed taken from Hitler's writings and his propaganda warfare manual in his 1925 autobiography known as Mein Kampf. In his 1925 biography, Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler defined the term big lie in his autobiography. He defined this term as: the big lie is a propaganda technique. It was defined by Adolf Hitler in his 1925 autobiography Mein Kampf as a lie so colossal that no one would believe that someone could have the impudence to destroy the truth so infamously. The big lie technique is a repeated articulation of complexity of events that justify subsequent action. The description of these events involves some element of truth, and the big lie generations merge and eventually supplant the public's accurate perception of the underlying events. In order for the big lie technique to be most effective, it must involve three important elements. It must include three elements, and these elements are: number 1, a huge, colossal lie, an unrecognizable deception. 2, constant repetition to a mass audience. 3, suppression of the truth through a climate of fear. This also refers to as fear-based propaganda. Adolf Hitler used the big lie technique with great success. Now, the big lie technique is simply the repetition of lies over and over and over again until people believe it, despite arguments or evidence to the contrary. It's a strange fact in human psychology, considering that the big lies, the big outrageous lies, are more believable than the small lies. People feel there must be something to it because the claims are so extreme. This is why the big lie technique is a great way of deception, because many people are led to believe the same deception. Many people are led to believe it, and any arguments or any evidence to the contrary, they will automatically reject it because they believe the lie that they have been told. This quote is from Adolf Hitler concerning a variety of deceptive propaganda techniques. He says, "Through clever and constant application of propaganda, people can be made to see paradise as hell, and also the other way around, to consider the most wretched sort of life as paradise." As you can see, homosexuals have done an effective job in shifting public opinion in their favor. But what most people fail to realize that this is a carefully devised propaganda conspiracy that has been in effect for several years. Homosexual advocates have made their propaganda conspiracies known in two major documents. The first one is, one of the two documents is titled The Overhauling of Straight America, published in Guide magazine in November of 1987. The other is a book-length expanded version of this Guide article called After the Ball, How America Will Conquer Its Fear and Hatred of Gays in the 90s. The Overhauling of Straight America, writers Marshall, Kirk, and Erastes Field lay out an ambiguous program of deceit and vilification of homosexual enemies. In the second document, known as After the Ball, How America Will Conquer Its Fear of Hatred of Gays in the 90s, writers Marshall Kirk and Hunter Madsen expand on normalizing homosexuality in society and vilifying enemies of homosexual behavior. These documents are a must-read for anyone who wants to understand how our culture is being homosexualized by a well-funded, deceitful, and well-determined. Just simply click on the links on the right side of this video to learn more about this deceitful conspiracy and how it is socially destroying our once godly nation. Movement understands that an important component of their big lie conception is, of course, fear, and this fear is of telling the truth. Homosexual propagandists, the homosexual urban legends, of course, they have been perpetrated by homosexual propagandists, but they also have been perpetrated by prestigious organizations such as the American Psychological Association and the American Psychiatric Association. On the American Psychological Association website, it says, the big lie technique continues in the follow-up question, can therapy change sexual orientation? The APA answers, no, the reality is that homosexuality is not an illness. It does not require treatment and is not changeable. It is clear that the change in the APA designation was not due to new findings, but had everything to do with the lobbying pressure and tactics of the homosexual community. When the change was made, only 1/4 of the proposed members of the APA voted on the proposed change. Current research from professional organizations like the National Association for Research and Therapy of Homosexuality, also known as NARTH, dispute the APA's pro-homosexual position. No researcher has found provable biological or genetic differences between heterosexuals and homosexuals that weren't caused by their behavior. And then there are ex-homosexuals, those who have continued in homosexual liaisons for a number of years and then chose to change not only their habits, but they also chose to change the object of their desire. Sometimes this altercation occurs as a result of psychotherapy, and others it is prompted by religious or spiritual conversion. Great cultural and legal changes have taken place in our society because of this homosexual urban myth, which is slowly but surely being debunked. This is being done by conservative psychiatrists and conservative psychologists. Even some of the homosexual researchers themselves admit that there is no genetic base for homosexuality found in their research. Homosexuality is not genetic. Homosexuality is something which is external, something which comes from the environment. It's simply a choice. Homosexuality is not in genetic predisposition. And as I said before, even some of the homosexual researchers themselves admit that their research did not prove a biological basis or a genetic basis for homosexuality. The authors of the study pertaining to the origins of homosexuality carefully quote a number of homosexual researchers who have worked for years to locate a gay gene or some other genetic basis for homosexuality. They have failed and are now admitting that such evidence may never be found. Homosexual researcher Dean Hammer, for example, attempted to link male homosexuality to a bit of DNA located at the tip of the X chromosome. He has written, homosexuality is not purely genetic. Environmental factors play a role. There is not a single master gene that makes people gay. I don't think we will ever be able to predict who will be gay. Also, homosexual researcher Simon LeVay, who studied the hypothalamic differences between the brains of homosexual and heterosexual men, noted, it's important to stress what I didn't find. I did not prove that homosexuality is genetic, or find a genetic cause for being gay. I didn't show that gay men are born that way, the most common mistake people make in interpreting my work, nor did I locate a gay center in the brain. Although it is true that there are studies that have been construed by the secular media as providing credence to the genetic causable theory, however, there is no evidence that demonstrates homosexuality to be genetically preconfigured. There has been much controversy recently surrounding the issue of the causes of homosexuality. Now, however, it is becoming increasingly more popular to explain virtually every human sin, including homosexuality, as the inevitable result of one's genetic endowment, brain chemistry, or any number of physical conditions. There are several problems, however, with the genetic cause theory. First of all, as I stated before, there is no scientific evidence which demonstrates that homosexuality is genetically predetermined. Although it is true that some studies have been construed in the popular press as leading credence to the genetic cause theory, however, as all scientists know, heritability does not mean inherited. Although Hitler was a master of manipulating large numbers of people, he intuitively understood that if you told a lie and people believed it, and people found out about the lie would be easily rejected. But he understood that if you told a big lie People will question their ability to process their information, and people will eventually come to believe the lie. There is no evidence proving homosexuality to be genetic and unchangeable, yet people still believe it, although there is evidence that proves the contrary, and that's what the big lie technique is all about. I want to thank you all for tuning into my video. Be sure to tune into part 7 of my video. God bless you all. I love you all. Amen.